All right, we are diving back into the archives. This is going to be rounds 2, 3, and 4 from the 2007 14th Western Pennsylvania Scholastic Championship. This was my third over-the-board tournament. If you've been keeping up with the series, you know that I'm on a bit of a losing streak. However, we have 3 quick games to go through here, and I'll tell you right now, the losing streak does not last forever. So in this next game, I faced Kyle Bird, rated 900, and I was rated 837. And I had the black pieces. We started e4, e5, very normal, the Italian game. I played knight f6, and we get this fried liver type position. And in the game, I played the move bishop c5, and my opponent took on f7. And that's the end of the game. As you can see, that is all the moves that I have. However, surprise, surprise, black wins this game. I don't have any more moves recorded, but according to my notation and according to the tournament, I did go on to win this game as black. I most likely played the move queen to e7, lost the rook, eventually picked up the knight, and then swindled my opponent somehow. If you are advanced in openings, you'll know that this position, before I try and play queen e7 or anything, is actually perfectly fine for black. In fact, black scores very well in this position with a very nifty, crazy, creative, desperate move. So I'll give you a second. See if you can figure out what move here is actually considered good for black. And it's the move bishop captures f2, the Traxler counterattack. You give up the bishop, your knight and queen and other knight get developed very quickly, getting on an attack towards the king, and the rook is not so important if you're able to checkmate white. However, I can assure you that I did not know about the Traxler attack until I was in college. That's where I learned about it a bit, from the white side actually, not from the black side. And so, very much not the case that I would be planning on playing this move. So this would be one option if you're falling into this type of trap as the black pieces, losing on f7. You could learn the Traxler attack with bishop takes f2 here. If you want something a bit calmer, I'll back up, and I'll show you that this position right here is still fine. After the move knight to g5, if you don't want the crazy bishop c5, bishop takes f2, you can play d5 right here, blocking the diagonal towards f7. White captures, and we go ahead and chase down that bishop. Just put the main line here for you, and we get this position. Black is down a pawn, but has a great position, lots of activity, 2 good bishops, no more attack on f7. But even this is too crazy for a lot of players, and they want something super calm to thwart these f7 attacks. And so we would back up here where you would play bishop c5. Notice that knight g5 is impossible due to queen captures g5. And if they played a move like d3, knight f6, and now you can castle. The trade on f7 is good for black. Getting the bishop and the knight in exchange for a rook would make us very happy. So even though I don't have the complete game to go through that I was able to swindle a victory from, that is 3 options for you to defend that attack on f7 that is very common at the beginning and intermediate levels, and even played at the higher levels at times. So that is the complete round 2. Now in the tournament, I am 1 out of 2, moving on to round 3. In round 3, I had the white pieces against Morgan McMurdy. I was 837, she was 863, so a pretty even matchup. And I'm continuing to play d4. I exchange here. And we see an early pin. And as you may have noticed in these games, I am playing a very early a3 and just forcing this bishop to make a decision. And my opponent, in this case, captures the knight. You saw in an earlier video likely that my opponent backed up in one position and I was actually able to chase down and trap the bishop. But here the bishop simply trades and both sides develop pretty normally. And we reach this position. And unfortunately, it just was not my day, apparently, because as you can see here, this game also not completed. So notation just wasn't happening for me on that day. That often happens in your first few tournaments. It's hard to remember. It's hard to continue to take notation, especially if things aren't going your way. However, this position, there are a couple things to notice. White has two strong bishops, and black cannot play c5, a move that black almost always wants to play from the black side, especially against d4. And so white should be pretty happy with this position, going to castle king side and try to get an attack on black's king side. I did go on to win this game. I don't have any recollection. I don't have any notes, but I did end up 2-1 at this point, so 2 points out of 3 going into our final game. This game I played David Katz. I had the black pieces and he was rated 889, and we'll go through this one quickly. He played d4 and we end up in this position, and I know it's unfortunate. This game also not recovered, but this can be what happens when you dive into the archives, when you go into the past. All the information is not always there. So here we have 3 incomplete games, but we can still learn from them. This position can actually tell us a lot. Notice that both white and black have blocked the movement of their c-pawns. And this means that neither one can break open the center, and both of the c-files remain mostly closed. As a result, it doesn't make a big difference because for both people, they can't move their c-pawn. But if either player had moved their c-pawn before developing the knight to the c-file, they would have a distinct advantage. c2 might become an issue here. I did go on to win this game also, actually, and so I ended up going 3 out of 4, and I didn't record fully any of my 3 wins, unfortunately, and I tied for 3rd place. But this is great because the tournament right before this, I lost all my games except for the forced bye that I got. And this is clearly a movement back onto the right track, so I will likely continue playing tournaments. Obviously, I continued playing chess since I'm here making this video 13 years later. And I ended up gaining about 100 points from this tournament. So hopefully you could learn a couple things from this video, a couple things from these games, even though they were incomplete. Fortunately, scrolling through the pages to the next tournament, it appears that my notation was better in most cases. So we'll see if we can recover some of those games and continue the archives. Thank you for watching, and good luck in your games.